Howdy there, kiddos. Glad to have you here. As per usual, we got a new thing, and some people have immediately found ways to be upset about it. Once again, as per usual. Let's be honest here. I think we've all become rather accustomed to a certain little segment of the community that's going to fall for rage bait every single time it's cast out, and they're gonna get whipped into a frenzy regardless of circumstance. But for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, and thus, I appear. Today I'm telling you why this mech slander is absolutely ridiculous, and once again, people are upset that they don't have an automatic win button, or that they heard someone being negative and proceeded to decide this is the opinion in which I am adopting from here on out with no testing needed. I feel like most of this arose from the latter, and a pairing of a fundamental misunderstanding of what our baby dreadnoughts are supposed to bring to the field of battle. So, you know me, I took it upon myself to bring both the original and the remix into both theaters of combat to find what it is exactly that they were meant to do. So, if you would be so kind, please take a seat and consider the following. The order of business is going to go a little something like this. I tell you what mechs are supposed to do, and then I tell you how you're going to go ahead and do that. Sound good? Good. The chief objective of a mech, contrary to popular belief, is not to maintain some fashion of invulnerability. Yes, it provides defense for a little while, but as we all know, that timer reaches its end rather quickly for people who insist upon standing still instead of slowly backing up when encroached upon. This is not intended to be a suit of armor akin to a tank or an APC. It just so happens that you are shrouded with metal when inside. By the way, in case any of you are curious, I am fairly confident we will be getting more vehicles in the future, as developers do not reference mechs as mechs, but instead, when speaking about them, they use the broad term vehicles. Back to the matter at hand. You may ask, if not for protection, then how are these of any use to anybody? That right there, the idea that protection must be hinged upon defense, is not the correct way to approach a mech. Instead, you must approach with the idea that the best defense is a frighteningly effective offense. You don't have to hunker down and protect yourself from anything if you decided that you weren't interested in an approach of taking turns laying siege to one another, and instead you decided that in one fell swoop you were going to deliver an onslaught of force. An onslaught so overwhelming your enemy would have no option other than to cease their very existence. These machines should not be treated as shields, because that is not what they are. They are swords sharpened for the sole purpose of cleaving legions in half. Okay, look, I'm sorry. I have been getting really into Warhammer lately, and I think I accidentally just, flipped a switch into, battle prep speech mode, so don't worry about that. Moral of the story is, you gotta stop treating your mech like it's a human iPhone case, and start treating it like it's a giant gun, because that's exactly what it is. Let's kick off strategy talk with our newest addition, the Mustard Menace. I am well aware that it's called the Emancipator, but due to the sound it makes when I'm killing shit, and due to the fact that Emancipator's a whole lot of syllables, I have dubbed it the Thumper. The Thumper shouldn't be called in under every circumstance, instead saved for very specific ones, but don't fret because they aren't very difficult to manufacture. I would not recommend you use this against bugs, as autocannons perform very poorly against titans as well as chargers, at least given your alternative mech that we'll get into later. I do, however, recommend that you use these against bots. There's a few requirements that you need to take your time realizing before attempting to put this into practice of running down your foes. You must fully conceptualize the ideas of positioning, movement, priority targets, your own limitations, and the things that you plain do not fuck with. With the autocannon, despite being deprived of the ability to aim down any sights, you will maintain a significant distance in between you and your enemy for a multitude of purposes. You have no issues pertaining to range besides that of your own visual limitations. See to it that you opt for landscapes free of visual occlusion if possible, and very long sight lines. Example, if you are in a jungle map, posit yourself near riverways where you aren't getting your vision blocked by the tree lines, or in dire straits, fire the cannons at the base of the trees in order to remove them as a whole. By being further away from your enemy, you minimize your likelihood of being caught off guard, as you have a wider field of vision spanning the entire battlefield, as well as ample time to react to any incoming rockets, bringing us on to our next point. Only stay still for brief periods, as mistakes can be made, and a mobile target is much less susceptible to hit by incoming rockets from a blind spot as opposed to a stationary one. This also shines light on your targets of opportunity. By the way, I know I said hit instead of hits earlier. Ignore it. When you clash with the enemy, see to it that the first to be decimated by your hand be anything capable of firing a rocket salvo. They are the most common ways usage of this tool is abruptly brought to a halt. Everything takes a back seat, barring one particular circumstance. Unless you have direct access to a heat vent, in which case, strike like a viper and decimate it immediately. Do not engage, or otherwise draw any ire of a cannon turret. Whether it's a tank, whether it's the top of a strider, whether it's a tower, don't jack with that thing. You will not harm them unless you have access to the vents, and they will immediately vaporize your ass. If you abide by these rules, maintaining both clear mind and steady hand, you will have no issue finding great use out of the affectionately named Thumper. Unfortunately, I do not have a fancy alternative name for the Patriot, much to my own chagrin. Maybe you can help me out in the comments, I don't know, that's up to you. What I do have are the methods for you to muster up use out of the little Autobot. Although this will function against bots, it's not going to serve as much use as the Thumper on account of its propensity towards closer engagements. With that, we are going to file this firmly into the category of a bug mech, which is good because we have 1 and 1. As opposed to the Thumper and its 4 autocannons, the Patriot has a 2-weapon system. To put it simply, we're saving the rockets on enemies charger-sized or larger, everything else gets the minigun. The methodology for the Patriot is almost the exact opposite of the Thumper. Whereas the Thumper needs distance in order to assess incoming threats, the Patriot is best used coaxing a wave of enemies, then proceeding to shred them into ribbons with the minigun. I typically like to reserve going all out with a Patriot for particularly large bug breaches, as a single mech can most assuredly clear one without trouble. Another contrast between the Patriot and the Thumper would be that the Thumper often feels like it has more ammunition, but the Patriot never has to back down from a threat until both reserves are empty, albeit they empty pretty fast. The only requirement for the Patriot is that you keep your enemies downrange. Should you do that with a level of competency and accuracy, it will prove a great asset to you. A few more general knowledge statements and, closing statements to help you along the way. You have 2 per game. Make sure you have used your first one by the time the mission is halfway through. You don't want to end the game with a mech on standby. That's different than calling it an extract. I'm just saying make sure you get ample use out of these things. If it's damaged and on fire, you have 2 options, and they depend on whether or not you are preserving lives. If you have them to spare, dump all of your ammunition on anything in your sight worth destroying. If you are low on reinforcements, cut your losses and get out to avoid further drain on resources. Once again, I would like to remind you that these are tools for striking down your enemy with righteous indignation. They are not an overgrown bubble shield. We already have one of those. They are capable of quickly eliminating droves of enemies so long as you use them competently. All I've got left to say now is if you would like a large group of active, competent, and respectful individuals to play or hang out with, there's a Discord server in my channel information providing exactly that should you meet the age requirement. No, it is not the unforgiving hellscape that is the standard Helldivers server. Although the primary focus is Helldivers, people play plenty of different things in there. Here's to hoping that big update's coming soon. I can talk about that with you guys, and thanks for watching as always. You folks have a good night.